For the cheapest coins with fast delivery and quick customer support, check out my sponsor RedZone Coins and use code SWIFT at checkout for 15% off. Social family, and today I'm coming back at you guys with another Madden 21 video on the channel, and in today's video I'm going to be going over 5 tips and tricks to win more online games in Madden Ultimate Team. Now, as you guys know, I am a consistent 25-0 player in Weekend League. In fact, I've yet to lose a Weekend League game. I obviously don't miss clutch iced kicks or throw picks when I need to score touchdowns at the end of the game, so you guys know you're getting this info from a credible source.
Boy, if you don't get...
Now, yeah, as we hop into this video, if this one does help you out, all I ask of you in return is to leave a like down below, and if you enjoyed this type of content and you're not yet subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button as well. And without further ado, let's hop into tip number 1 of this video. Now, tip number 1 is a really simple piece of advice, and for this one, what we're gonna do is actually go into our team settings screen, and we're gonna make sure that we've got a couple of settings in here down pat with the right adjustments. So the 2 main settings you guys are gonna want to change are your coin toss settings. Your coin toss first choice is going to want to be kick, and your coin toss second choice is going to want to be against the wind. By putting it with against the wind, essentially what's going to happen is you're going to be able to have the wind at your back in the second quarter and the fourth quarter, which is when it is most important to get the wind at your back for those clutch kicks before the end of the half and before the end of the game. So make sure you've got these 2 settings adjusted. So coin toss first choice says kick, and coin toss second choice says against the wind. Now, moving on to tip number 2, let's talk about playbooks, because playbooks are probably the most important thing when it comes to winning games in Ultimate Team. It is super important that you guys have selected 2 playbooks that you're comfortable in and have some type of scheme built out of. Now, for me, I run the Panthers offense. If you guys are struggling on offense, I actually do have a little mini ebook where I go over about 7 plays in this offense, which are super glitchy. What I'll do is I'll actually give away a couple of copies of that. If you guys want a copy of my Panthers ebook, just leave a social media down below in the comment section, and I'll be DMing a couple of you guys the link. But this Panthers offense is super good. I currently run the gun bunch offset formation. There's a lot of versatility, some pretty solid runs in there, as well as some really easy dots. And what I'd recommend you do is go onto YouTube and look up a couple of schemes, or just practice a couple of different formations in practice mode and find something you're comfortable in. Once you know a formation that you're comfortable in, then you can start to build a scheme out of it. So the first tip out of this kind of playbook section is to find a scheme you're comfortable with on offense. Now, in terms of defense, there's a lot of options you guys can go with, because a lot of playbooks have a lot of overlapping plays, especially on defense. So for me, I'm currently rocking the Chiefs defense. It gives me some good versatility. I've got a couple of 3-4 plays, but I mainly find myself running out of nickel and dollar. So this has nickel 335, dollar 146, and those are 2 formations that I really like. So that's why I kind of went with the Chiefs playbook. I would probably recommend that all of you guys go with Chiefs. It's a super versatile book, and everyone could just plug that in and you'll be able to go with some good run stopping plays as well as some good pass defense plays. So Chiefs defense is really good. And then on offense, it's up to you. Find a scheme you like. If you guys want a copy of my Panthers ebook, leave your social media in the comment section, and I'll DM a couple of you guys the link to that. Now, hopping into tip number 3 of the video, I want to talk about abilities right here, and abilities are probably the second most important thing when it comes to picking up wins in Ultimate Team, and these first 3 tips are things you guys should all be doing before you even hop into a game. If you do all these 3 things, you're going to give yourself an edge before the game even starts. Now, on defense, I feel like you can kind of put the same abilities on your players, whether you're playing a man coverage or a zone coverage scheme. There's not as much versatility needed, so we'll talk about defense first. And on defense, my favorite abilities are to go with edge threat on my pass rushers, and then I like to go with acrobat on my other secondary members. Now, you guys can test other abilities. On the defensive line, I'm very confident that edge threat is the way to go. I'm currently using 6 ability points by putting Myles Garrett and Aaron Donald with edge threat, but those 2 abilities are definitely well worth it. It is super important for me to get a pass rush, especially when I'm playing man coverage. My corners can stick with the receivers for maybe the first couple of seconds with a good press off the line of scrimmage as well. Those edge threads get working, and they get after the quarterback. Now, the other abilities that I used are acrobat. Acrobat is a pretty solid ability to put on your secondary members. If you guys want to test that out, you can. Obviously, bench press was super good, but they nerfed that a little bit. It now costs 3 ability points. So in terms of abilities, my main recommendation would be on defense to use a couple of edge threats, and then you guys can test out other stuff stuff on the rest of your defense. Now, in terms of offense, there are 2 abilities I think everyone should be using, and then the rest of your ability points should be spent based on the scheme you like to run. Now, the only 2 abilities I think everyone should be using are Edge Protector on both of your tackles. As you can see, Lane Johnson and Trent Williams right here are costing me only 2 ability points to get Edge Protector, and essentially what that's going to do is give them insane pass blocking on my opponent's ends. Now, this is going to give me so much more time in the pocket, which is well worth it for the 2 ability points, so that's what I think everyone should be doing on offense. Now, with those other 8 AP, you can mess around and try other stuff. I personally wanted to put Tight End Apprentice on my tight end. That works well in my scheme. I've got Backfield Mismatch on Barry Sanders. That's really good to beat man coverage, and then Lamar Jackson has Escape Artist, but it all depends what you guys want to do on offense. The only abilities I'd say everyone should use are Edge Threat on defense and Edge Protector on offense for both your tackles and both your defensive ends. Okay, now moving on to tip number 4, I want to talk about a couple of pieces of gameplay advice, and we're going to start this off by talking about the importance of possessions in Madden Ultimate Team. So possessions, just like in the NFL, are absolutely crucial, and I think in the NFL, around 90% of the time that a team wins the turnover battle, they also end up winning the game, and that is even more important in Madden Ultimate Team when you guys consider how short these games are and how quickly the clock moves. Realistically, in Ultimate Team, you're maybe going to touch the ball 3 to 4 times on offense, so if you guys can force a turnover from your opponent and you don't turn the ball over on offense, well then you can bring that number up to about 5, and your opponent's number and the amount of times they touch the ball is going to go down to like 2 or 3, so that can be absolutely huge. It's going to give you such a huge advantage if you guys win the turnover battle. So in order to win that, make sure you don't make any stupid passes, don't take any crazy risks. Let's not get too crazy here on offense. It is very easy to move the ball by being methodical and making your reads. There's no reason to go crazy and throw the ball up to your wide receiver hoping you get some type of crazy aggressive catch. Just stick to your scheme and stick to what you know, and you won't turn the ball over. Now, when it comes to defense, we're trying to force mistakes, so we're going to try and lurk, we're going to try and bait with our user, we're going to maybe try and get a little bit of a pass rush, which really forces a lot of mistakes. Just like in the NFL, when you put some pressure on the quarterback with those edge threats like I mentioned, you're going to be able to force some mistakes. You're going to maybe cause a throw at a sack animation, and like I said, we have Edge Protector on our players, so we're going to have a little bit more time in the pocket, which is ideally going to mean we don't make those mistakes and don't make those dumb throws. So that's just what I wanted to talk about for tip number 4. I wanted to talk about possessions and the importance of them. It is so crucial that you guys try and win that turnover battle, and to do that, you're going to want to make sure that you make smart reads on offense. Don't get too crazy with your play calls, don't get too crazy with your reads, and then on defense, we can maybe take a couple of risks, maybe switch up your coverage sometimes, try and bait your opponent by usering and lurking. Also, obviously, you want to adjust to whatever they're doing. Let's say they're throwing a lot of corner routes, well, we're going to make sure that we put a purple out on the field, and we're going to make sure that we put our zone drops back to 15 or 20 yards. So make sure you guys are also countering what your opponent does, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about when it comes to possessions and the importance of them in Madden Ultimate Team. Okay, now moving on to the final tip of the video, I want to talk about clock management and the importance of making sure you're aware of the time and situation in every single game you play. Now, clock management can be absolutely huge, especially at the end of half and at the end of game situations. Just like in the NFL, it is important you guys manage your time wisely, manage your timeouts wisely, and ensure that you have the best opportunity to win by not giving the ball back to your opponent with the opportunity to score at the end of half, or trying to get the ball back for yourself at the end of half or at the end of game situation. So a couple of pieces of advice I'd want to give you guys is, let's say your opponent's driving and there's 2 minutes left on the clock and they're in the red zone, and let's say, for example, this is at the end of the first half. Well, you're going to want to make sure you're using those timeouts after every single play your opponent uses, because it's guaranteed they're only going to be running 3 to 4 plays, especially if they can't pick up any more first downs. So whether you stop them and you end up forcing a field goal attempt or end up giving up a touchdown, you'll ensure you have a little bit of time left on the clock. Now, vice versa, the exact same thing applies. Let's say, for example, we were driving, there was a minute and a half left on the clock, our opponent maybe had a couple of timeouts, and we're at like the 10 to 15 yard line of our opponent. Well, we're going to want to start chewing off some of that clock and making sure that when we score, or if we score, we don't give our opponent that much time. Now, obviously, you're not going to pass up an easy touchdown for the sake of not giving your opponent time, but it is important that if you guys do maybe complete a pass or run the ball, that you have chew clock on and you make sure you're not snapping that ball until the play clock is under 5 seconds in all of those situations. And exact same thing goes at the end of games. Let's say you're winning the game, make sure you're smart, make sure the clock keeps on rolling, you've got that chew clock moving. Realistically, you can only run 7 to 8 plays and chew off almost an entire quarter. So you guys can really get the clock to move really quickly, and 7 to 8 plays is the equivalent of only 2 or 3 first downs, so it's really not that hard if you guys are smart with the clock to actually win a couple of games just by being smarter than your opponent. So that's what I wanted to talk about in today's video. A couple of tips you guys can do before the game starts and then within the game. Hopefully this did help. If it did, leave a like down below, hit that subscribe button, and until next time, fellas, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'm out. Peace.
So,